Oh, sorry about that. Cat decided to jump on me.
Oh, I didn't, honest. By the way, we're live at this moment in time. We're live, apparently. So that's all right. We're actually
Yep. There we go.
live.
We're live.
Woohoo! I did something, and I did it right. So that's all right. What do we want to talk about then?
Oh gosh, I exhausted my private military spiel earlier.
Well, that's fine. We can always go back onto that. We could always go back onto that. That's not a problem. I'm quite happy talking about
that. Okay. Let's see.
What was your actual main point then for that?
Oh, just that you can have private military groups in countries that may not have governmental support, and the private military structure, it allows for more civilian interaction, whereas the government model, it kind of restricts it to government personnel.
Yeah, but you were touching on the fact that they still harbour around the actual governmentarian buildings and things like that, which doesn't actually mean that they don't have an army, though. That just means that they hire out to mercenaries, which is technically not a private army. It's just a band of mercenaries. So I don't understand where your point is on that.
So there's necessarily two different types of private military. There's the private military, and then there's the private security with authorization to rights of force. So in Uganda, they've got the private security with more of an authority to use force, and Blackwater would be a private military group. So the private security forces are actually gaining more power than the private military groups.
Right, okay. But that's obvious that they would actually gain more power because they're privateers. Basically, what that means is that they would go around and they would offer their services to people, where governmentarians and government officers wouldn't be able to offer their services to any Tom, Dick, or Harry. So it's obvious that they would be able to recruit people as well for smaller villages, for doing little aspects for little villages, and then making their armies bigger and better. There's just different forms of being able to actually make an army better, where you have one that's doing forms of recruitment, you have the other that's actually going out and recruiting.
Right. Well, I think that the main difference between them is the availability of the newest technology, because you have the private military groups, they've got private investors, whereas the government, you still are dealing with antiquated technology.
It depends, because it depends. If you were a privateer... Sorry, my missus just walked in and absolutely spooked the crap out of me. It depends. If you have a private military where they've actually gone out and they've acquired the military objects and military intelligence off of the actual governmentarian military, then technically you're still forming intelligence and getting better weapons off of them, are you not?
Right. You're still able to develop signals intelligence and whatnot, because the private military groups, they more often than not have better support forces than government.
Oh, sorry, you'd have to repeat that. I was reading chat because Stories put in, what's the difference between a private army and a mafia assassin? And I thought that was quite interesting.
Okay, so I was sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
Well, you've messed everything up, Stories. That's normal.
Difference between a private army and mafia assassin? Not much. Private army, you would just have a website for, I guess. Mafia assassin, you got to know someone, I guess.
Well, not really, no. I'd say that the difference between the private army and the mafia assassin is the fact that the mafia assassin is actually going against law no matter what, because it's a criminal family in general.
Right.
Meaning that you're necessarily taking out individual people, where an army is not taking out individual people, they're fighting wars and protecting and doing what an army would do. The assassin normally operates on their own as well, because they're not actually part of the mafia. They're actually part of being an assassin for the mafia.
Right.
Where the private army is an army. So you're going to have at least 100 to 200 people, at least, for that to be an army. So those are slight differences. An assassin would always work on his or her own.
Right,
so
right.
That's what I would think would be the difference anyway.
So Story's just asked in the chat, what is Blackwater and Iraq doing? So Blackwater, which is now Academy, is supporting G4S in the development of gas pipelines. And naturally, if you're going to be tapping their natural gas lines, there's going to be some conflict. So right now there's Academy, G4S, and there's another one. I'm blanking on the third one, but right now they have... right now they're kind of switching their names around to make it sound like they're not doing a lot more than they are.
It doesn't matter about the third one. Just carry on your point. It doesn't matter about the third name. The fact that you said G4S just puts me straight away anyway.
Yeah, so you have the monopoly, and basically what's happened is that Academy has people that have... Okay, just saw what Stories, but... No, it's protecting Iraqi property for private interest groups. The private interest groups are then selling the oil to different countries and are not reselling it domestically. So then you have another rise in oil strife in the Middle East.
Yeah. So basically, you've got private companies protecting the oil for places like America and Russia and places like that, rather than the Iraqi people.
Well, also Academy, they protect the opium fields, and we get most of the opium.
I love those fields.
We get most of the opium for pharmaceuticals from Academy and through their subsidiaries.
So you're telling me they don't go to Vietnam to get opium anymore?
They may have some bigger fields, but it's I don't know how to put this into scale. If you imagine about 100 hectares, give or take, they've got about 1,000 of those farms.
About 1,000 football pitches, roughly.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah. Sorry. No,
yeah.
It's 100. What the hell am I doing? It's 100 football pitches. My math, Jesus.
Yeah, so I don't remember the exact numbers that they bring in gross, but they do deal in the majority of the opium trade.
Yeah.
Private military, that is, yeah.
Private companies don't own the oil, so they are doing exactly the same like the mafia. I think you have the wrong conception of what the mafia does. This is what governments do, not what the mafia does. But no, this is literally what a lot of people would say that the reason was for the Iraq War, was to go in and get the oil fields, to get the opium fields, to be able to use their resources. I believe I'm a Skeptic released a video today or yesterday that was stating that government doesn't equal mafia. Mafia can sometimes equal government, but government definitely doesn't equal mafia.
Government equals terrorism. There you go. Government equals terrorism.
Now you're definitely going down some conspiracy theories. Remember, I'm not ogre. But yeah, sorry. Armored Skeptic released a video that was stating that for the reason why hurricanes were going. Now, that's not the point of the video that I want to use. It was a snippet that was in the middle of it, saying that the reason why Donald Trump didn't want to be part of the G4 summit, that was to take them out of the greenhouse effect and all that sort of stuff, was because that if you did that, then they would have to force electric cars, which means that they would stop burning fossil fuels, which means that the American economy, you know what I mean, is completely built on dollars, on the barrels of oil. Rather, anything to do with dollars is built on oil companies. So as soon as the oil companies fail, the dollar will fail. So that's the reason why he pulled everything out of the greenhouse effect type thing, that summit.
Right.
I just found it funny. And then he makes a little joke, Ahmed Skeptic makes a little joke going with a picture of Colonel Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein going, that's the reason why we went to, I better not say that, and moved it away. And I thought it was quite funny.
Oh. Yeah. It's like last week or so, I was going through Black Pigeon Speaks videos, and
oh my God.
going down the rabbit hole. He was saying that the military could adopt well from the Japanese model, which is to hire out other countries to protect them for them. So they have a fallback of liability that they don't have to accept themselves. So what do you think about wars by proxy?
Well, wars by proxy are the same as wars, are they not? It's just that wars have a form of legitimacy in the eyes of the people, and wars by proxy don't have a legitimacy in the eyes of the people. What's the difference?
Right.
One's just sanctioned by the people where the others ain't. What's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I think most wars are absolutely pointless. There's some instances like World War II and World War One, which, yeah, you kind of had to stop the tyranny from going through. But for going into Iraq and places like that, nobody was really bothering anybody. Yeah, you could say that Saddam was doing things to the Kurds and things like that. But at the end of the day, I don't mean it in a horrible way. We've messed everything completely up by doing that nowadays. It's just weird. Helmand Province have an estimated 1 million metric tons of rare earth elements. Do you mean something like lithium, as in making all the new batteries? For Life is People Network 99. What about the Falkland War? I do believe that was a just war, to the point where it was another country that was trying to claim sovereignty to another country, basically. So I do think that the Falkland War was actually justified in that aspect. I think that they could have come out with a truce hell of a lot quicker, because I don't think that they should have gone to war to start off with. There should have been better negotiation. But at the same time, I think that it was a justified war, in my opinion. I don't think it was justified how many people died in the war. Obviously, any loss of life is worth remembering, but the war itself was definitely worth going into, in my opinion.
I don't really have much of an opinion on historical wars. I'm not too versed in them, so I'll stay clear of that subject.
That's fair enough. This factor asked Argentina for a favour that she could get re-elected. I think you're being really cynical there, to the point where she's gone over to Argentina and said, right, can you attack the Falklands so I can get re-elected? I mean, you just think about that for a couple of seconds. I know that the governments, that we believe that there's a lot of things that governments would do, but a lot of people wouldn't be necessarily going to do that. That's trusting another government to do your bidding for you. I don't know. It's just my opinion on that. I don't know what you think about that at all.
I was distracted by the chat. I saw this Afghanistan mineral sector by Life is People Network 99, and yeah, it's definitely going to be an untapped resource that they'll be seeing a lot more investments throughout, because China holds a monopoly on rare earth minerals, and next to that would be Canada, and then third to that would be Russia. So definitely seeing Afghanistan mineral sector that would offset the costs for things like palladium and other ferrous metals.
I believe he was actually talking about lithium, as in the power for electric batteries.
Oh, okay, okay.
I believe, but I'm sure that he can correct us in the chat. But I'm pretty sure that he's talking about lithium, which would actually be a South American country that actually has the highest amount of lithium. I believe it's actually Chile that has the highest amount of lithium.
Right.
Which is funny because Cornwall's actually found, or in the process of finding, a very big form of lithium in basis in an old tin mine. So something like that. You know what historians called Afghanistan? The empire killer. No joke. Yeah, well, it would be. It's toppled Russia. It's toppled different regimes in America. It is the empire killer. You go there when you just want to end your reign in charge. We're going to have a war in Afghanistan, right? He wants to quit office. Just tell him to go before we leave. But it makes sense. It makes sense. To be fair, if you look at anything that's done in the Middle East, most of them have quite interesting names. Oh yeah, definitely the UK as well. But we followed Russia. I don't know why you put us in capital letters, by the way.
A bit of pride there.
Well, it's funny that I believe that Stories is German, which is quite funny. Oh, have you got any other ideas that you want to talk about?
Give us another topic, chat. I am exhausted on the private military and geopolitical status of the mineral trade.
Oh, you say God save the Queen blood. Did you watch my video on oh God, I can't remember her name now. But a Labour MP that was actually saying that she wanted to guillotine some of the royal family, and the fact that she said that Harry was a dithering idiot that couldn't learn how to fly a helicopter.
That was a good video.
As I said, it's one of my latest videos. If you wanted to go watch that, so it's that one's quite interesting. I mean, me myself, I don't have any sort of feelings, good or bad, towards the royal family at all. But at the same time, you can't go around actually physically telling lies about people and expect to get away with it. Mind you, this is an MP that's actually supposed to be in Kensington and Chelsea, so the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. Does anybody remember where that was? That was where the Grenfell Tower accident happened.
Oh, God.
And she was elected there. What do you guys think of Macron's speech yesterday? I didn't watch French politics, and I don't really care, to be honest with you. French politics is not something that really interests me. Oh, hello, baby. Are you coming up and going to lay on me? Go on, then. Sorry, my cat just jumped up on me and just completely blocked my screen.
I haven't been paying attention to French politics. I've just been trying to catch up with my own country's politics.
What country is that?
Canada.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. Just to clarify on what Jim Blood's point was, that's treason. It's not actually treason to tell lies about the royals. And it wasn't actually the MP that called for the guillotine. It was a member of the audience that called for the guillotine. And she just didn't refute it, and nor did nobody else, because it was a form of Republicans. By Republicans, we don't mean the American political side. We mean Republicans as in getting rid of the monarchy. I believe Stories asked you where you're from in Canada, my mate.
I went to college in Toronto. Yeah. Got to experience all of that craziness that Lauren Southern has been covering and all that. So
I love Lauren Southern. Probably not for the same reasons as everybody else does, but I love her.
Oh, a bit cheeky.
There's no cheekiness. Just wear lower cut tops, please. Anyway, I'll leave my misogyny at the door. Let's get back to the topics. Living in Vancouver.
I have family in Vancouver. It's a good. A lot of Chinese. Oh, sorry, Orientals.
Oh, see, I just thought that you actually meant Chinese shops. I didn't realize that you were talking about race.
Oh, sorry.
How dare you talk about race on my channel? How dare you?
That's funny.
Yes. It is. Well, there must be. If there's lots of Orientals around, there must be a lot of good Oriental foods. You were saying that Macron basically said that there should be a central EU. There is a central EU. It's called France and Germany. And France and Germany dictate to everybody else what they're going to do. They're the ones that set all the laws and then take countries like Hungary and Poland to court over things like they didn't take in their refugee quota. Because that's a form of democracy, isn't it? One democracy voted that they weren't going to take anything in, and then you have your central democracy telling you that you needed to. What one's right, what one's wrong? I'll leave that debate open into the chat.
I still can't get over the fact that Hungary has an admiral and no water.
Shh, don't tell them. we just let them think that they have a navy. It's fine. Shh. After all, they've got to have land boats.
Just like the land sharks.
Exactly. You've got to watch out for the land whale. Wait, sorry, that's feminism.
Oh.
I don't think that French people like to speak German in the future. No, that's the reason why they fought you in both wars. But that's besides the point. Ask a Canadian; they speak French. And they didn't even get taken over.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. I had to put that in.
No, I went through all high school in French immersion. Fun times.
Okay, it's a rare earth element. Rare earth metal ream, as defined by, is one 17 chemical elements in the periodic table. Fair enough. I'm getting completely lost by Life Is People. I'm getting completely lost by what he's actually putting down. Just lots of gobbledygook at the moment, elemental stuff.
Oh, good. So Life Is People and I were talking about the same elements then. Okay.
I'll let you carry on then. I'm completely lost.
Oh.
I'm more better in politics. Take me back to politics. Leave me out of science. I'm a heathen who don't believe in it. No, I am actually really joking. I obviously believe in science. It's the only thing you can believe in.
I had a science professor who was trying to debate that the sun was flat. That was a fun one.
What? Wow. I just got a brain hemorrhage. I'm sure I just did. Or it was an aneurysm. I can't remember.
Now, her justification was that you never see it in a sphere, so it must be flat.
Yes, it's only something like what is it? 140 something billion miles away. Of course, you're not going to see it as a symmetrical sphere. It's like I was going to say, I can sort of understand where you would come along with the theory of a flat Earth because you can't see the end of it, if you know what I mean, not unless you do weird stuff. But to know that the sun goes round in a circle, to look at the sun and see that it's a circle, you can't really go, oh yeah, well, it looks flat. It's like, does it? Does it really? Like, I suppose we could always go on to flat earthers.
Ooh, fun.
So, what do you believe? Is the Earth flat?
Oh, I don't know.
I take it from your sarcasm that we might both actually agree on something.
What?
Well, in that case, I'm going to take the position that Earth is flat. So, make your case.
Okay. So just based on navigational charts and the direction and placement of the stars, based on the hemisphere, there must be a curvature. in the Earth. Is
Why?
there not?
Why?
Oh no, this is going to be the cyclical argument, right?
As I said, I'm going to do the exercise and fight as a flat earther. I would like to point out I am not a flat earther, but I will fight for the process of being one.
Okay.
So
Well,
why must it be a circular or have a curvature?
Well, how do you explain gravity if the Earth is flat?
It's a force that pulls us down onto the Earth. It doesn't necessarily mean that we go around in a circular sphere. It just means that the ground underneath us goes down at a deeper depth than we originally thought.
So then, in that flat Earth, we would be more of a prism.
Not necessarily a prism, but a prism. Sorry, not necessarily a prism, but it is a form of. I don't know. At this point in time, how do you know that gravity actually is gravity? At the end of the day, it's just a theory. But obviously, it pulls us down. But if we're a flat Earth, we don't actually need to have gravity because we wouldn't be spinning around in a circular sphere, would we?
That's right, because centrism, we would be the center of the universe at that point, right?
Hence why you said by the stars, because the stars move around us.
Oh, gotta breathe. Gotta not get heated. Well,
by the way, to break character, gravity actually has to do with a hell of a lot to do with shape and by mass. As you and you saying it has nothing to do with shape and mass, it has everything to do with it. But anyway, back into scene.
Resume tableau.
Yes. So yes, I believe I was spanking your ass.
Yeah, you were destroying my arguments. So wind currents. How do we explain the acceleration and deceleration of wind currents over distance?
Butterfly effect. Butterfly effect.
Okay. How do we explain the changing of the seasons when there is no physical turning of the flatness?
Because, as we've already stated, the stars and the moon and the sun rotate around the Earth, so it's only its natural cycle when it rotates around the Earth.
Of course. Yeah.
At least make it harder.
If you haven't noticed, I haven't gone deep into this rabbit hole.
Back to stories and breaking character again. It does matter about shape, because if it's more of a circular matter, you can actually make more of a mass and condense it more into a mass. Hence why we're a circular matter, because the gravity rotates into a circle. That's the reason why we're a circular. Technically, we're a squash circle, but that's the reason why we're a circle, because gravity pulls it into a particular shape. That's why it has stuff to do with shape. It's like with a flat feather. If it's flat, gravity with the force of air will push it up because it won't pull it down as much because it's wider. Same as with planes with their wings. Anyway, scene.
Damn it. Okay.
Yeah, so the moon and the sky and the stars and the sun all move around the Earth.
Okay. Oh, did you see that there was a GoFundMe started to prove that flat earthers are real?
Yes, by B.O.B. Now, don't change the subject.
Okay.
Yes, I did see that. Yes, he wants £1 million to launch a satellite into the atmosphere so we can see the curvature and prove that it's flat completely.
Right. Yeah. I don't understand those people. Yeah. What's terrible is that I feel if I looked into this rabbit hole, I would just believe it more and more. I'm that gullible. I'm a Gullah calf.
Oh, trust me, it is really not that. I know I'm fighting for it in this scene at the moment, but it is really not that believable. See, you should come up with ideas of if it's not circular or spherical, then how comes that it's easier to fly from America down to Australia? Now, if we were flat, that would mean that we would have an end point and a beginning point.
Right.
So if you were to argue something like that, how would I be able to say that it's flat? Because I wouldn't be able to say it could move around in a circle, would I?
No, no.
Because that defeats my argument by saying it's flat.
Now you are just a lot better at the logical fallacies than I am. Dang it.
Yeah, that's why I've got a channel and you haven't. Sorry, I'll check my 57 subscribers privilege and walk back out that door. Right, chat, do you have any other discussions for us? Please?
Please, chat. I haven't even opened my second beer.
What are your thoughts? Blockchain, decentralized tech. No, see, you're going too far into that. I can go on to what I expect what free speech is. So why don't rivers flow uphill? Well, that's because of gravity. Because literally, they come from a hilltop. The only way that they're going to go down is down. Was the empire good or bad? It depends on who you ask. If you ask the left, it's bad. If you ask the right, then it's good. The reason why it's good is because it brought most people into a form of civilization. Because a lot of people go, oh yeah, it brought lots of slaves. Actually, Africa and the Middle East were actually producing slaves a hell of a long time before we even thought about having slaves. We had what we called indented servitude, which was basically the Irish and the poor just being slaves in a corner somewhere. But it depends on who you ask. Me, myself, I think that the empire was a good idea. After all, we wouldn't have America, we wouldn't have Canada in these sort of places. Canada would have been completely French. You can ask a Canadian, that would have been really bad.
Oh, then we would just have Jean Chrétien going balls up in the French. Not that he didn't before, but...
Oh dear.
Right. Now, was the Empire good or bad? It was only good under Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah. Go jump off a star. Go jump off the Death Star. Right. And the British got rid of slaves. Yes, they did get rid of the slaves. What if you ask the right Indians? It depends what Indians that you're asking about. Are you talking about the Indians that are in India? Or are you talking about the Indians that are in America and South America? What ones are you talking about? Don't generalize. Don't be racist. The loonie still has the Queen's face on it.
I'm just trying to see if I've got a loonie with a different face. They come out with new ones every 5 years. One was a flying mallard, and another one was a hockey team.
So one has a duck on it.
Yes. Well, that's the double-sided duck, because there's the Canada goose, and then one actually has a mallard on it.
Okay, see, the only thing that I'm getting from this is the Mighty Ducks, because you're Canadian, you're talking about ducks, that means hockey. So that's the Mighty Ducks, D3.
Well, that's like Canada this year just put out the first glow-in-the-dark circulation coin.
Is that in case you get too drunk you can't see it in the snow?
Oh, well, we've already got the plastic money. People think that it smells like maple syrup.
Because that works. Does that work when you put it into like coin machines and like vending machines? Does it still work like that? I didn't think it would, because it's normally done on weight and size.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of these places like arcades, they have to retrofit their machines, and they don't work for shit.
Oh my god. So much money wasted just to bring in plastic money.
Well, it's funny because about 2 or 3 months after they put out the plastic money, there was already counterfeits out of them.
Yeah, well, that's exactly the same as what it is in this country. At this moment in time, we've had £5 notes that have come out, and within 2 weeks of them coming out, they reports of it being counterfeited.
Yeah.
A £10 note just come out, like, I believe 3 weeks ago. They've already been counterfeited. It's like, what's the point? It doesn't do anything. Just leave the circulation the way it is. Stop giving us hyperinflation. We don't need any more inflation. Go away. Going back to stories, you said both, but I actually said that there was at least 4, 5 different types. As in, you have the Indians from India, you have the Native Indians, Native Americans, you have all the different Indians that are down in the south of America. So that's Chile, that's Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Colombia, all of them. Bolivia, all of them. So you're going to have to specify. I haven't seen the new tenner yet. It's actually not too bad, to be fair. It's quite a lot. It's the same size as the fiver. It's just got a picture of a young Jane Austen on the back of it. Exactly the same colour format as well. It's not too bad.
Let's see, the 10 bill that they just put out here, it has the Trans-Canada Railway and Sir John A. Macdonald on it. Fun times.
Old MacDonald had a shh. Right, so Stories was talking about Indians from India. Well, you have to specify. What do you mean? Do you mean did we civilize them a little bit more? Yes, of course we did, because they were fighting between their religious points of view, between Hinduism and Muslim, as they were so close to Pakistan, for instance, as well as Sri Lanka as well. They were all warring at that point in time. We actually brought peace to that provenance to a degree. Into Al Qaeda went into Pakistan and decided that they were going to start blowing up places again. Is nobody going to make a tenor lady joke? Why? We don't need to make a tenor lady joke. Stop taking the mickey out of people who laugh. We're very, very... We don't like that. Our feelings are very, very precious to us. Don't destroy my fifis. Right, chat. Let's pick up something else.
Yeah.
Let's pick up something else. Right, the question was if they like it. Well, if you look at most Indian literature, they actually tell stories about how impressive that the British Army was and how they civilized most people, how they were able to bring different buildings and hotels, and how they were able to bring in different economies. The fact that they were able to bring in different defense leagues and things like that. You think of it now, where do most of the call centers go from our country? They go all over the world, in fact, actually. Most call centers are now based in India because they outsource it to that point. Now, that's not to say that they're in the best working conditions, but that's the form of capitalism that we brought to that country, which has brought it up into making it an actual superpower in the lower Eurasia point. So I don't understand what the argument is. Surely they must have liked being brought up into the civilization. That's part of imperialism. But yeah, anyway, has anybody else got a question? We're spread on the back of the empire, which could be argued is one of the universals. On this rock we live, on that tumbles through space. Actually, just to improve your point, Network 99, it actually wasn't football. It was actually cricket that was actually portrayed around. Yes, there you go. It was actually cricket that was portrayed around the world, part of the colonials and things like that, as well as rugby. Football wasn't actually invented until the late 18th century, around about 1870 something. It's one of my favourite subjects. I like football. Imagine Germany is super advanced. Would you like it if we bring you Brits civilization? If you ever get to the point where you are super advanced, then yes, bring us forward. But until that point, don't bring us forward, especially if you're going to use fascism to actually bring us forward. Sorry, was that a bit cheeky?
Maybe invent a long-term energy storage system so you don't have a energy high and low. I don't know.
But no, it's just funny. Well, American football was only invented because cricketers had nothing to play in winter. Actually, rugby was invented to do that. And Americans didn't actually like playing rugby like that because they couldn't actually grasp the rules of the game. Because they didn't understand why they couldn't throw it forward. So they put it in that you could throw it forward instead, as in the one pass from the quarterback. As well, putting on the pads because they didn't like being hit as hard. But that's nothing to take away from American football because American football still hits bloody hard. Come on, chat. Give us something to talk about. We're failing. We're failing miserably.
Okay, I'm going to post a link to an article in the chat, and let's discuss this.
Oh dear. I've got to get to it. Oh. Patriotism is for black people.
So I just loaded this up. This is my first time seeing it as well.
Oh my god. I think I've got a problem with this already. Right, how do I present the screen?
Oh, Canadian standpoint on North Korea? Oh,
chat.
So fun times.
Hang on a minute, I'm getting it.
Basically, it's been established that the U.S. won't defend Canada with its nuclear powers like it has said in the past.
There we go. We're sharing.
And so I forget the year. Terrible for dates. But Canada, they issued a full disarmament of their nuclear weapons and shipped them to the United States. Little known fact, we actually didn't decommission them. We just gave them to U.S. So we don't actually have much of a nuclear defense system other than interceptory missiles. So
yeah, but it's fine. You're friends with America. You don't need a nuclear arsenal.
Yeah, we're the friends of the world. No.
Yay, America! Everybody loves Canada. Oh, Canada. Oh, Canada.
If North Korea were smart, they would go team up with another Axis power. I don't know who's still helping them nowadays. Let's give the China benefit. And all you need to do is do a land invasion of the frickin' coast there, because the amount of training exercises that are conducted in Canada are uncanny. It would be really easy for an invasion force to make land.
Well, from China, it would be, yeah, they could quite easily go into the top of Alaska and then work their way down. You know, use that old land bridge.
Well,
sorry.
Even going through Nunavut and coming down through the Northwest Territories, there's a lot of unpatrolled coastline there, because Canada has some of the largest coastline in the world.
And there's me thinking you were going to say bears.
Yeah, a lot of people would say that the Canadian wilderness would be able to repel any attack force that comes in. But you've got to remember that the North Koreans, they are used to less than favorable conditions. So it'd be quite easy for them to assimilate to, and hell, you can always invade in the frickin' summer.
It would be an idea, yes. If you were going to invade Canada, invade in the summer. And coming from a Canadian. Right, shall we talk about this Canada, story then?
Okay, yeah, I'm just going to say one more point about Canada. We still use cannons as our coastal defense. So black powder infused, yeah, we still use cannons for coastal defense.
That's very interesting. I think I might be able to invade.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. It's been said that a small force of 500 like special forces could easily take out any military establishment in Canada just because uh, of like weapon storing and the fact that most munitions can't be stored loaded even in military facilities. So if there was a rapid response, maybe, but as it sits, Canada is pretty vulnerable to attack because a lot of its citizens don't really know how to defend themselves and don't have a gun. Like, there's only 3 million gun owners in Canada. Most of them are in prairie states and you know, in northern forests and things like that. Very dispersed. There's no large concentration of guns in Canada, so it'd be very easy for a force to go through, and it'd be quite easy to take Canada out. Realistically, we're just friends with too many people that people don't try.
It's good to have friends in high places. Right, let's do this story then.
Yeah.
I'll start off reading it, and then if you want to talk about something, or if I get too annoyed, I'll stop.
Okay.
We have all stood in the grocery store and watched a kid, usually white, scream at his or her mother, in a volume and tone that defies our mama's mantra.
Remember the Ebonics.
I was thinking of bubonic. When we go in the store, you bet not say nothing, touch nothing, or want nothing. Alternatively, we've all heard a mother, usually black, cursing out a school principal because her mum refused to accept that her child failed a test or wasn't good enough for basketball team. Just a bit of misogyny. I didn't know that black girls wanted to actually play basketball. Don't get me wrong, I know there's a women NBA, I understand that. But on a general point, I didn't realise that that was like a big major plot hole. Anyway, I suppose I better carry on. Many parents excuse the actions of their children in the name of love. Those children sometimes never live up to the promise of their gifts and abilities because they never held responsibility for their actions. Do you not think that that's actually the reasons why we have so many problems at the moment in the world? As in the far faction left at the moment that doesn't believe that any form of their actions at the moment have any consequences. So when they get arrested, they shout and scream at the police, trying to scream fascism, when they never even have an idea what actual proper fascism is. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, it's, of course they will shout and protest because what have they been taught? They've been taught that they're special, and they've been taught that if they don't get things their way, that they have to change it so that it is their way. Not really good for social change.
No, I don't know. It depends. If you're civilized and you protest quietly, as in you're just going across and doing your thing like the civil rights movement in general, not when Malcolm X was leading it, obviously, but when Martin Luther King was leading it, you were getting a hell of a lot of change at that point. You were getting so many white people that were starting to march with everybody because they were sympathizing with them. Because the way that you change anybody's mind is you make them emphasize with the point that you're trying to make. Because as soon as they make that physical connection, then they'll be with you because they understand what it is. Because generally most people are scared of what they don't understand. And if you're scared, you lash out. Now, if you understand that point, you're no longer scared. You can then understand it, and then you can go with that point. That's the way that you make change. That's the reason why everybody says we need to draw out everybody's common ideas, their mantra, their dogma, get it all out into the open, talk about it, and then get rid of all the bad stuff because you've talked about it, and change everybody's mind that way. That's the only way that you can ever do it. Otherwise, you're only going to force your own opinion on other people.
Yeah.
Right. Where the fuck was I?
So they were never challenged to be better, to do better.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay. Pleading softly with Timmy in the cereal aisle, or obstinately telling a principal, that teacher must have something against my child. might seem like love, but it enables bad behavior by excusing it. It might make the child feel good, but it doesn't fix the problem. It's not love. No one loves America more than black people.
Right. Well, I don't understand why they've only put the fact of black people. I mean, at the beginning, you made the mantra of saying that you had the white people and a white mother, so to speak. So why wouldn't it be nobody loves America more than American people? You know, because
Right.
you're all American. Well, they are all American. Obviously, we're not.
Oh, geez, I didn't realize this was a decently sized article. Okay.
It's fine. It's not that problem. On Monday, the Roots senior reporter, oh God, Terrell Jermaine Starr, yay, penned a brilliant piece about the NFL protests against injustice and inequality. Entitled "Patriotism is not for white people." In it, he summed up how white supremacy often wraps itself in red, white, and blue and calls itself patriotism. Patriotism, there. And he was 100% correct. How is that correct? How is that correct?
Because apparently symbolism is akin to patriotism.
Look, you could argue that the symbolism for patriotism could be a form of racism, but generally, I thought that was the reason why they had the Confederate flag. I thought that's the reason why they had the air brackets Kakistani flag. I thought that was the reason why they had the Nazi flag. I thought that was their symbology. I thought that was their symbolism. Not using the American flag and going, "Let's make America great again." Sorry, that was my best impression.
I'm going to be cutting that as a sound clip. We'll see it later.
Damn it. damn it. Right. Star. I don't know what that says. Dissected. Fucking hell. Sorry. It's really late where we are. It's past 12.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Star. Oh, I just said that right. The history of racism and oppression disguised as love for country and described it this way. The problem with narratives of American patriotism is that they ignore the fact that America was and is a colonial state. No. It is not a colonial state because they fought for their independence. That's the whole reason why they are not a colonial state.
I was about to say,
whatever.
I'm pretty sure they had something to do with that one.
I'm pretty sure that they were able to fight for their independence, and I'm pretty sure it was on July the 4th. Because today is our Independence Day. Sorry. Colonial powers are violent and racist by their very nature. I don't think they're racist. They can be violent because they have to have a form of tyranny to be able to control it. Back when they first invaded and things like that, and have a form of soldier presence. So I could agree with you in principle for the violence, but for the racist, I don't believe that it's inherently racist.
I'm pretty sure they didn't discriminate who they took over in the colonies.
No, they didn't discriminate on who they took over. You could argue the point that as soon as they like, for instance, using Native Americans, they didn't really chat and try to sort things out with the Native Americans. They just started shooting them because they thought that they were inferior savages.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be discussed as racist. But in a generalized thought, as you said, they weren't really discriminating who they shot. They just shot people, which is a form of violence. It's not a form of racism. America's military is not a protector of peace, is an enforcer of colonialism. It's not a form of colonialism because you're not a form of a colony because you're not colonizing anybody. The only country you've annexed is Canada. Indeed, black Americans have died in America's wars but do not fully experience the freedom that comes with the sacrifices white people do. I've got a headache. So you're telling me when people were not allowed to fight for their independence, as in what black people were not allowed to do because they were considered slaves, they weren't actually asked to fight in the War of Independence to start off with? It was only Abraham Lincoln that decided that they were good enough to fight, or because they didn't have enough people to fight, that he actually put him in for the last, I think it was 5, 6 years of the war, something along that lines. And that's the reason why they started fighting. But it was never an actual point where black people were the sole providers and the sole people that were protecting everybody. In fact, most people wouldn't want black people to be doing that because they were inherently racist at the time. But generally, things have changed now. Kinda. Depends on who you ask.
Less overt.
Glass half full.
No, the glass was designed to be over capacity.
There's no such thing
There
as
you
a
go.
glass that can
And
be. There's no such thing as a glass that can be designed to be over capacity because it would only be filled to capacity.
exactly, but if the glass is half full, the glass was designed to be over capacity.
No, the glass is just half full.
The glass was designed, but the water inside is only occupying half of the required space of the glass.
Yeah, but which means that the glass is not over capacity. It means that the water doesn't fill the capacity.
Okay.
I'm very pedantic about these things. Leave me alone.
I'll just drink my beer.
Yay, beer! Patriotism has never been a radically, I can't read, equitable experience because it was never designed to be. This is not a rebuttal or a counter-argument to any of that. What we think of as patriotism is often a white-knuckle death grip on a tradition and history that manifests itself in oppression long before Francis Scott Key penned his magnum opus or Betty Ross sat down to Spangle and Banner with Stars. Over the years, we have conflated patriotism with blind allegiance in the same way a parent does over an unruly child and calls it love. Do you have any points to that?
So in this article, patriotism is the parent and the citizens are the child.
Apparently so, yes.
Okay.
And apparently everybody needs to be told that they're stupid and they can't become a cheerleader and they can't play basketball because you're a black woman. Apparently. That's what I'm getting from it.
Yeah. I'm just going to scroll down. I saw this one paragraph that kind of stood out to me.
Right.
Beware the people who wrap themselves in red, white, and blue cloth of patriotism, for they do not love America. They hate freedom. They despise equality. They wield the flag like a tiki torch. They called Martin Luther King Jr. a communist and painted the civil rights movement as un-American. They want comfort, not progress. They are the opposite of patriotic. So the Martin Luther King wasn't backed at all by any white people. Zero whatsoever, of course.
Yeah. And you have to remember that he was a communist.
Yeah.
So they say. They called Martin Luther King a junior communist and painted the civil rights movement as un-American. Maybe the government did, under John Crow, because, those were the laws that he was trying to set. But the American people, being how institutionalized racist that they were, followed him and said that, no, we will have black people as equal to us and stop this segregation. But yet, guess what? The left actually want to bring back segregation on the college campuses again. So who's the racist? The people that didn't want to have segregation or the ones who want segregation?
Well, apparently it's this author, Michael Harriot, whose comment is, black people built this country, not like everyone else, more than everyone else, for free.
Well, welcome to communism then, because that's what communism will do to you.
That's exactly what it would ask for. I don't know where people think that the communism they would all get desk jobs and they're all, censoring. There's just going to be huge.
Well, seems like I've lost Froggy. apparently. So that's always good. Yeah, I noticed that you dropped me. I noticed. How long before to utter you are the brains of the central nervous system is deemed a hate crime? Well, see, Net 199, how can you say that you're the brains of the central nervous system? Surely the central nervous system is a system that's by itself. Surely.
I think I'm back now.
You are back indeed. You are back indeed. I've actually got rid of the article. I didn't think there was any point on that.
No, I think that it was just going to be rambling on saying, oh, the same point for every paragraph.
Exactly, and because I was screen sharing, I couldn't actually see what the chat was going on about, so I wanted to see what the chat was going on. The first part was just bullshit and has nothing to do with black or white. Well, that's the reason why we were talking about it.
Yeah.
It shows you the comparison between white children and white mums and black mums. Just because they do it in a particular different way, as in one will shout and curse, and the other one will shout and curse outside of the shop before they go into it, is exactly the same thing. It just depends on where they actually do it. So you're actually proving that there is no difference. Where you're trying to say that there's racism in it, you're actually proving that everybody's exactly the same. You're actually destroying your own point by doing that first paragraph. No, that's a response to Trump's response to the NFL guys. Yeah, we know that's why we did the story.
Yeah.
What they discriminated everybody and still do. Yes, they do. They do discriminate everybody. Have we lost everybody? No, we've only got 3 watching. So we've got me watching, you've got you watching, and we've got stories. The Commonwealth should have had a defence treaty. Depends what you mean by the Commonwealth. But you've disappeared, so I'm not going to be able to get an answer for that. You'll have to DM me stories, and then I can, or follow me on Twitter and then send me a message, and then I can send you the invite. And then we can have a chat. Woo! The 3 people that are watching this can actually talk to each other. That should be interesting. Let me see if I can actually find you. I don't actually think I have you on Twitter, to be fair. Apparently not. Not unless you called something completely different on it. Which would be probably what it is. My Twitter name is The Common Sense Guy. Hello, Wood. How you doing, mate? I'm just going to pop it in a chat, to be fair.
Oh, hello, Wood.
There we go. Anybody that wants to come into the chat, feel free. There's only us 4, so come in and have a chat, make it easier. Oh, 5. Damn it. No, it couldn't be deemed a selfish hate crime. Because if you say I alone, then it means that I'm taking responsibility for my own actions. As in, I alone shot everybody. It's simple as that. I can't summon now. Everyone is sleeping. It's 4 a.m. Yeah, that's fine, Wood. You don't have to come in. It's not a problem.
Hey,
no problem at all.
Can you hear
Hello
me?
there. Yes, we can.
Yeah, gotcha.
How are we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
So wait, it's always taking the wrong account. I have no clue how to switch the account.
Before you
were saying Batchmat stories, it's using my normal thing, and yeah.
With
I
me,
remember you were saying that you couldn't change your picture.
Yeah, I can change the picture, but in the wrong account. I have like 3
Oh.
different YouTube accounts, and it's
Mm.
always taking the wrong one, this one here, and I can't switch to my Weltschmerz Stories account.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, it is.
so how are we all doing anyway?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Well, not too bad. Not too bad.
You were reading my responses way too late. I responded directly when you said something, and so it was kind of messed up to
Well,
read them.
Well, one, there's a 5-second delay, and second of all, I was busy reading, motherfucker.
Yeah, I know. You apologize, no problem. No, the thing is, the article, in my opinion, it's about Trump's reaction to this kneeing thing of the NFL guys, because he blamed them as not patriotic and shaming the country and things like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is a problem that I have. I mean, on the one hand, you see some Nazi guys walking through Charlottesville, and he says like, "Oh no, a lot of them are like great guys," and then you have people protesting in silence, not doing any harm or anything, and he's blaming these guys, and that's ridiculous.
He didn't actually say that they were all good guys. He actually said that there's good people on both sides.
Many sides.
Yeah, exactly. Both sides. But he only said that there was good people on both sides. He didn't try to specify that there was good people on the right. He didn't specify that there was good people on the left. There's a lot of people that are quite centrist that are starting to pick sides, and they shouldn't be picking sides, to be fair. Your point of saying that they're unpatriotic and you don't understand why and why Trump's pulled them up on it, you could quite easily say that with a country, that if you playing softball with an under 6-year-old team will stand there and everybody will have to pay tribute to the flag, that's how patriotic that they want to be. Now, me coming from England, and I'm sure you coming from Germany, we don't necessarily do that. We very rarely do our national anthems, where they do it on every single sporting event and every sort of event. They do it almost every day at school as well, at least once.
Yeah,
So that's how patriotic they are.
Yeah, but
That's
then
the same in Canada.
Yeah, but then it's still a good thing to say, here's something wrong in our country. How can that be unpatriotic? And I think that the problem with the Americans in general is that they don't, how can I say it? I mean, they deny their history. They deny all the bad things they have done. And that is exactly the problem. When there
you'll have to elaborate.
any bad things happens and somebody's pointing it out, then he's unpatriotic, and that is ridiculous in my opinion.
You'll have to elaborate on that. What do you mean by people doing stuff that's wrong?
Go through American history and find.
No, I understand that. But I understand that. But you have to go through our own history, as in our colonialism, as in the world wars. We've all got stuff that we can point them back and go, oh yeah, we shouldn't have really have done that. And then go, yeah,
Well,
but we've all changed.
I kind of agree with Stories. Well, when he's saying that you have to recognize what your country's past done, and I agree that saying that something is unpatriotic is kind of like saying, oh, that's just an Uncle Tom. It's just an easy conversation ender. It doesn't really add to the argument anything calling someone unpatriotic.
Yeah, but to that point, you have to go, what side is using that? And I'm not trying to destroy the arguments or anything, but you have to think, what side is actually doing that? Is that supposed to be the fascist side that is coming out and calling people Uncle Toms or racist or fascist to destroy the point of conversation? Or is it the point where you're actually trying to say, well, no, the left are doing that because they don't want to talk about it because their ideas are shit?
Yeah, at first, I think you shouldn't think in terms like left or right, because that is leading nowhere. And it is not the question if you agree in Black Lives Matter or if you disagree. but having the right to show your protest. I mean, that is in the First Amendment. And when Trump calls them motherfuckers for having the right of using the right of their First Amendment, then
I thought you called him a son of a bitch.
You don't need to agree with the NFL people. That is a whole different topic. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's their first right.
No, I do understand what your point is. I understand what the whole point of the whole taking the knee is as well.
In my opinion, this whole Black Lives Matter thing is, in my opinion, is completely bullshit. But that is not the point.
No, I understand
their right to express their opinion.
Yeah, but isn't it Donald Trump's right and other people's right is to express their points of view on your own point of view?
Absolutely.
To criticize that point.
Absolutely, it is his right. But I'm not blaming that it is not his right. I think it is totally inappropriate for a president to call these guys motherfuckers publicly. That's totally inappropriate.
Maybe so, but I mean, at the end of the day, you've got Trump that's already had those type of locker room talks and things like that, as in grabbing a pile of pussy and things like that.
Yeah.
So you can tell that he's what you call a ground to earth or earth of the salt or salt of the earth type of person. I don't think that that's to give him leeway because he's the president of the United States. But if he wants to use language like that, again, that's his First Amendment right to use whatever language he wants. As long as it's not completely destroying anybody. And calling somebody a motherfucker nowadays doesn't mean that you're fucking somebody's mother. It just means that you're a dick or an arsehole.
Yeah. I understand.
I know you do. I was just clarifying in general. To me, it just seems that you've got this point of view where you've got one person that's saying, oh, I want to do this, and you've got somebody saying, well, I don't want you to do this. And in a democracy, that's the bit that you've got where you're allowed to fight and talk about the different points of view. Now, admittedly, the inflammatory words that one side is using is complete and utter dribble, but he still has the right to say that and mean it, the same as they have the right to take the knee. The point that people actually have with them taking a knee is, if you're going to protest, don't protest against the flag, protest against the police, for instance. Don't protest against the flag, don't protest against a country that has made you a millionaires.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, the police, for example, is only one part of the problem. And the major problem is in the country itself. The country has a systemic problem. And so kneeling down in front of the flag is not the worst way to do it.
I feel like I could accept their protests more willingly if I knew their objective for protesting. If they could offer resolutions to the problem, other than creating this libertarian mindset that they have squashed and turned around to subject their own needs. So I don't know.
I mean, the thing is, Black Lives Matter is one thing, but I mean, there is racism in the United States. I mean, you can't deny it. And
what's your proof for that? Because I deny that. I don't think that there's systemic racism in the USA. I think there's racism in general with different people, but I don't think there's systemic or institutional racism at all in America or anywhere.
I think every person in the world is a racist. So that is one thing, like a general racism, of course. And that is nothing really bad. I mean, every culture on the planet thinks that their culture is the best, and that is the way to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. But then, especially in the American society, I mean, you see it all the way. I mean, when you compare the income gaps between whites and blacks, when you see how many black people are arrested, you have a look at criminal rates of black and white. And there you see there's a big difference between black and white people.
What would you say is the actual reason for that then, or do you just think that that's down to racism and the police going out looking for them?
Well, it's like I said, it's a systemic problem. The black people.
So just to clarify in my own head, so you actually think that the reason why people in poor backgrounds and in ghettos and things like that, and they've been put into that position, and people that have grown up and made that area worse, are absolutely no problem whatsoever, and the police are being systemically racist towards those people to arrest them and put them into prison?
No. That's why I said the police is only one part of the problem. Surely the American police, not all of them, of course, but some of them are racist. That is not a question. But the thing is,
but you can say that for everybody. I mean, you're generalizing. I understand that it's easy to make broad brushes, but you're generalizing to the point where you're brushing over your actual points. If you're trying to say that some people are racist, then you're trying to also point out that people aren't racist. So that already counteracts your argument.
No, okay. It is okay. If I, as a German, for example, think that we are better than British, just to make something up, yeah, that is a racist point, but it is not really affecting you.
Why is it a racist point?
Yeah, because we are not better than British. We are different, but we are not better or worse.
But you are better than us. You're better than us that they're making pianos, for instance. That's why everybody goes to Germany to get pianos. You're better than us at making cars. Obviously, that's why we get Mercedes and BMWs and things like that. There are things that you are better than us at.
Yeah, and the British are way better in entertainment and music and so on. So there are a lot of things where British are by far better than Germans.
Yeah, but those are in different areas. You can go to the point.
The thing is, if I think like Germans are better than British, and you think like British are better than Germans, that is not a problem. Yeah, because that is only the way we are socialized.
Yeah, but it's still not a form of racism, though. It's a form of patriotism, but it's not a form of racism.
In my opinion, that's a form of racism.
Okay.
It's not a negative form. Yeah, it's like you are socialized by the people around you, and you are a Brit. So of course you think like rule Britannia, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I think maybe the same about Germany, and so that is not a problem. The problem starts when I am a policeman in your neighborhood. And then I pick you and say, you fucking British, now I arrest you. Then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, but that argument still...
what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying. So I really do, as in tourism and things like that, and you're picking up on the different forms of racism. I do understand what you're saying, but that still doesn't stop black cops going into ghettos and picking up black people that are committing crimes. That's not a form of racism, then, is it?
No,
that's a form of a police officer doing their job.
No, when a black person does a crime, then he should get picked by police and put into prison. That is not the point. But when a black person is not doing a crime and then picked up by police and put into prison, that is active racism. And that is the point where it's really influential. And that is happening in America all the time.
What's your proof of that? Because I haven't seen anything to do like that at all. I haven't seen any. I'll take that back. I've seen one or two cases of people getting it completely wrong, but I haven't seen it as a systemic point where everybody goes, I'm innocent and everything else with that, and they can prove they're innocent.
When you find a black person with weed, he goes into prison.
That's a law out there. That's a law out there.
Yeah, okay,
but
fine. But when you find a white person with weed, nothing happens. If you find a white,
they still go to prison, or they get it. Look, it depends, because if you've got a black person that's got weed and he's been known as a dealer and he's been known as carrying a
consumer, you have like 2 grams of weed.
I understand.
In your pocket
I understand. I'll let you finish your points. Let me finish mine, please. When you've got somebody who's been a dealer who's had gun weapons and things like that, and you've got a white person that's done none of those and got nothing else, or a black person that's got none of those and done none of that, and then one of them's got 2 grams on them, and one of them's got the other one's got 2 grams on them. Who do you think's going to be put away for prison, and who do you think's going to get let off?
Yeah, obviously
for the same crime. For the same crime.
Obviously the dealer, yeah.
So where you're going with that fallacy is nowhere, because it all depends on what your history is. It doesn't depend on what race you are, it depends on what history you have.
No, and that is exactly not true. Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers.
I've looked at the numbers loads of times. That's why I'm saying that most of them are repeat offenders.
But common sense, 80% of the imprisoners are black people. And
Yeah.
that is not by accident. That is not because they are all criminals. And the crime rate is way higher in the black community. And then you must ask yourself, why is it so much higher?
Why would you say it's higher?
Because they don't get the same education as the white people. They don't enter the same nice schools. They live in slums and so on. They get paid less so that they can't afford nicer apartments and so on. That's why I'm saying it's a systemic problem. It's not.
But is that down to the schools, or is that down to the actual class of person themselves?
Say it again. I don't get it.
I said, is that to do with the schools themselves, or to do with the area that they're in, as in the gangs that take them out of the schools?
I guess both.
I would say it's more to do with the gangs that take them off of the schools.
It has,
because there's lots of evidence. There's lots of evidence of black people that have been in ghettos. I mean, you look at Hilary Black. She was a ghetto writer, and she was able to write tons of decent books. Took herself up to being a millionaire.
But that is under a different pseudonym. Nothing, because that is just one person who made it out of the ghetto.
I understand that, but my point was that if you were to apply yourself, that you can get out of the ghetto. What I'm trying to explain is that if you let yourself be taken in by the gangs, or you're forced to be part of the gangs, then you're not going to apply yourself in schools, are you? And it depends on the culture of what your mum's going to make you do the homework, or is she too busy letting you go out and do what you want to do? It all depends on the culture in which you're brought up, does it not?
Absolutely, yes.
But is that inherently?
I feel that it's just.
Go on.
Okay, I feel that it's kind of generating a culture where it's just like when people get comfortable with minimum wage jobs. Though they may have the skills to do it, they get comfortable in the position because they may not strive for more, or they become comfortable with what they have already. And I feel that in those communities, it's more of a class issue than it is a racial issue. They have become comfortable with their living arrangement, even though they project their own inequalities on themselves.
See, I would disagree with you on that.
Okay.
To the point where I'd say I agree with you in part, but my theory is more to the point of a classical Marxism theory, where what you're doing is you're playing the victim. If you get someone to believe that they're a victim, then they will follow you. And that's what they would do to the gangs. The gangs would go to the children saying, you're never going to be able to do this. The white man's against you. Everything else is against you. The system's against you. There's systemic racism that's against you. Nobody's going to hire you. And then you're a victim. And then what else have you got? You've only got the gangs in your head. And that's where you end up going. And that's why you end up in prison. In my idea, and that's my theory.
Okay.
And that by accident only happens to people with black skin and not for people with white skin.
No, if you have gangs, gangs in white neighborhoods, like in the trailer parks and things like that, then generally you will have people that join those gangs. It really depends. It depends because most of the ghettos are set up for most of the black people, because most of the white people are forced out of the area, either due to gang violence or due to different points of view. That's not my own theory. That's in statistics. You can look that up on the USA websites.
Yes,
but my point is...
Okay,
I was going to say, my point is...
No, go ahead, Common.
I was going to say, my point is, if you've got gangs that are in white neighborhoods, which you do have, it's the same as what you have if you're in Hispanic areas. If you have a lot of gangs in that area, you're going to have a higher population of Hispanics going to prison. And that's the same if it's in a white area, because the gangs will prey on the victimhood of the people in that area, saying that you're never going to make it anywhere. Join us, see how much money we have. And that's the thing. In my idea, that's my theory. If you've got gangs in the area, it doesn't matter what race you are, they will take you in and they will put you to work.
Okay, I'll just say my point then. I agree with Story 20 says that there is some systemic racism in that with organized crime reporting, with a white-collar crime group, it would be the leader of the group's name with Latin adjectives to it. So, for example, it would be like Smith et al., whereas with a black group, they would use the name of the group. Now, I've seen a push for change in changing the labeling where they don't use the gang name, and rather they'll use the leader's name along with Latin subtext. And I can see that as helping with the systemic racism, but as long as there's still the view that there's white-collar gangs and then there's the street gangs, that's going to be one section of systemic racism that I can see with the police, at least.
But the thing is, I mean, whoever lives in a ghetto wants to get out, right? I mean, nobody prefers to live in a ghetto.
Of course, I'll definitely concede that. Everybody wants to get out and better themselves.
So when you have like a third of the population and they cannot get out of the ghettos, there must be something wrong.
It depends. If you look at the ghettos, you've got the point of, do you have a car to be able to get to work? If you don't have a car to get to work, do you have a bus system? Most of the bus systems don't go through the ghettos.
You are running in circles.
I'm not running in circles. I'm proving my point by saying that most people that are in ghettos have lost their will and have thought that they are victims, and they don't elevate themselves out of the ghetto. Nobody's going to pull them up. They've got to elevate themselves.
Yeah, well, and I in my opinion, the first step to elevate yourself is to have like a good education system and nice schools and so on. And they don't have it.
Because of the area that we're in. I understand that. I understand that, but
whose job is it to make sure that there are good schools? Is it the job for the black people who live there, or is that a government job? It's a government job, and the government gives a shit.
No. In part, it's both. It's up to the teachers to make the effort in the school. It's up to the people that are around the school to be able to go to governors' meetings, to be able to go to make sure that their pupils are doing well, to make sure that their own kids are doing well in their own schools and things like that. Go to parents' evenings and so on and so forth. And then that way they get more. Their rating get upgraded, and then they get more money from the government. That's the way that you make a school better. The government just can't throw money at a situation if you ain't got the teachers that are not willing to teach, and if you ain't got the parents that are not willing to force their children to to learn.
Yeah, but you must start at some point, right?
Yeah, and you start
starting with the family group.
Exactly. Start with a family group. If you make the family want to work and get out, then it forces everything else to change. If you only start with an institution, the institution will fail because nobody will support it. It's like building a house. If you don't have a foundation, the house will collapse.
Yeah, the question is, what is the foundation? The school or the family? And in my opinion,
the family.
It is in my opinion, it's a school, clearly.
I would consider the school to be more of a nature influence rather than a nurture influence.
Definitely. If, for instance, if you put your child into the best school, say Harvard or Oxford or whatever, the School of Frankfurt or whatever, if you put them into that school and they don't want to learn, are they going to get a good education if they don't want to learn?
No, absolutely not.
So where do you start from? Do you start with the school that's the best school in the world, or do you start with the person?
I start with the school. I give the people the opportunity to visit this school and to learn.
But you've
And
just conceded.
I must accept that there are some people who are not willing to learn. Yes, that's the way it is. But I
But
must
you've just
give
you've
a
just
chance
conceded,
to those
though.
who want.
Yeah, that's fine. But you've just conceded that if you have the best schools and you don't have the person that's willing to learn, then it's useless. It's absolutely useless if you don't have the. So you have to change the culture in the family. You have to change the culture in the area that you're at. Otherwise, it will not matter how good you make that school. It will not matter at all. You have to start with the family. You have to elevate the family by making them want to get out.
The family is the weakest point. The family, especially in the ghetto, a lesser privileged family, doesn't matter if they are black or white or whatever color, they are the weakest element in the whole chain. The families are living from paycheck to paycheck if they have work. Otherwise, they live on welfare, watch TV the whole day, and so
Which
on.
they're still living from paycheck to paycheck. I live from paycheck to paycheck. You live from paycheck to paycheck. All that's different is that you work for yours, I work for mine, so on and so forth. That's the only difference. We all live from paycheck to paycheck. Trying to say that it's going to destroy the family or anything else like that is completely different. It's completely irrelevant. What's relevant is the fact that people do not want to learn, and they find themselves as a victim, and they fall into a victimhood. Because they fall into the victimhood, they do not feel that they can elevate themselves. Then once they get into that rut, they won't get out of it, and that's the reason why they start committing crimes, because they feel they're not good enough to elevate themselves.
Yeah, I have a different view on it, because in my opinion, the family is the weakest element. The state, they have the money, they have the resources.
Can I ask a question then? Can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
If you think that the family is the weakest point, if you have, who was your biggest influence when you were growing up?
I would say my school.
See, I would say my
family,
dad.
Of course. I mean.
See, I would say my dad. I'd say my dad was my biggest influence, because if my dad wasn't around, I probably would have played up a hell of a lot when I was younger, and I wouldn't have been disciplined as much as I was, and I wouldn't have focused as hard as I did when I was younger. So I would say the biggest influence in my life was my dad.
Okay.
Some people it might be.
Why not? We have different lives, so I can't judge your life, and I don't want to. But yeah.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying. Some people, I don't. Would you say that your biggest influence then out of the schools was the primary school or your secondary school?
I would say. I mean, the thing is, I was in a private school. And I haven't seen my parents during the week. I could only see them on the weekends. And that was from a secondary school on. So I think in my case, it's secondary school who had the most influence.
Okay, then I mean, obviously, you don't need to go into too much detail on that side. In your secondary school, did you have a favorite teacher?
Yes.
With that teacher, did you ask that teacher a lot of personal questions and a lot of life advice in general?
No, not really.
So you didn't like sort of ask this teacher, what's it like growing up? Do you think I can do this? Do you think I'd be good at doing that?
No, not so much. No.
Okay, no, fair enough. I was just trying to find out if you would have used that person as an influence. That's all, like a surrogate sort of father figure, if you know what I mean.
No. I was always more into science, so you don't discuss these kind of questions with your math teacher or with your physics teacher. So.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I wasn't in your situation, so I wouldn't have a clue on how you would deal with it.
Yeah. Right, is it working now?
Are you actually back now? Can you actually come into the conversation?
Well, it depends if you can hear me on your side. I have to keep it down a bit because I might wake everyone up.
Okay.
No, we can hear you.
All right, excellent.
Yep.
I'll just sit back here until I'm needed.
Cheers. Thanks, Wood. I honestly think that it's more due to family ties than what it is to do with institution, because it's not the government's place to teach your children and elevate you. It's your own choice and your family's choice to elevate yourself.
No, I disagree. I strongly disagree. I think it's a job of the society and therefore the government, because it's the representative of the society, to make sure that everybody gets a good education, or not everybody gets, because as you mentioned, there are people who don't want to learn, but everybody should have the chance to get a good education.
Yeah, but it's a privilege. It's not a right. Education is not a. It's not right.
No. It must be a right.
It's not though. It's not a right. It's a privilege. As you said, it's a choice, which means it's not a right. It's a privilege.
No, in my opinion, it must be a right for everybody to visit a decent school.
No, that's fine. Let me attack this from a different point of view then. Obviously, your mom or your dad or whoever earned the money in the family, which it doesn't matter, obviously put you into your secondary school, into the boarding school is what we would call in the UK.
Okay.
The private school, so to speak. So technically, it wasn't actually the government that was actually providing you with your education. It was your dad or mum paying for you to go to a private school to get your education, which means that your mum and dad were nurturing you and pushing you to be the best that you could be, not the state.
Yes.
That's my point. If you didn't have your mum and dad pushing you into going into a private school, public school, instead of going to a public school, you wouldn't have learned as much as you did because you were there all the time. You didn't have any sort of distractions.
Yes, but I think that this is unfair, because my parents had the money to do it. But especially when I talk about black people in America, they don't have the money. They can't afford it.
But they have the chance to go through schools, get their education up to a good level, to get their diplomas, to go to universities. They have the chance to do that, don't they?
No, they don't. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Why don't they?
Because they have really terrible schools in the neighborhood, and they can't go to universities because they are way too expensive. They can't afford it.
No, because you can get scholarships at schools, especially for people that are athletically gifted. So you can get full scholarships, you can get half scholarships. There's lots of ways of getting away with it.
Then you can say, yeah, everybody can go to Harvard because you can win in the lottery. But how are your chances?
No, not everybody can go to Harvard because they have a different selection point.
Yes, their selection point is the money.
But everybody has a chance to go to university because they can get scholarships. They can also get internships. They can also go and get a job. There's always a chance of going to university.
Only a very, very small number of people who get an internship or a scholarship or whatever. That is like less than 10%. The most students in America leave university with massive debts.
Okay, well, let's put it this way then. Say that you've got your school, you've got a good enough diploma, you're not going to university because you can't afford it. So you go to a trading school, you learn to become a plumber or an electrician. You then be able to get enough money for your children to go to university. Yes. Is that not the way that you would actually be able to elevate yourselves out of the ghetto then?
No, definitely. It's fair enough.
But that's all choices. That's nothing to do with government. That's all to do with your own choices. Nothing to do with the state.
It has a lot to do with the state, because the schools in this area, they have a bad reputation, and when you visit such a school, then it's way harder for you to get out of it, to do the next step, to apply for a job, because everybody looks at, oh, you visited this school, okay, go away. I have 10 other applicants, and I pick one of those. And that is the thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't do that, but at the same time, if you got all A's or as high as grade as you could possibly get in that school, then you've got a very, very high chance, no matter what area you come from, to be able to get a job. If you apply yourself, you're going to be able to get better. And that's what my point is. If you apply yourself, no matter what the situations are, you can sort it out and you can do better for yourself.
Okay, but then in the end, your conclusion is that the black guys are just lazy and stupid.
No. That's not my conclusion. My conclusion is that I believe that they buy into the victimhood, the false victimhood that's perpetuated by the gangs in the area.
So
because they have nothing else.
A third of the population is on victimhood.
Yeah, hence why a lot of them are in Black Lives Matter, hence why a lot of them are in the Antifa movement. Because they believe that they're victims.
How many people are in the Black Lives Matter movement?
Like yourself, I'm not going to have that off of the top of my head.
Yeah, but it's a few 100,000, if you are lucky. And there are about 100 million black people in the United States.
Probably more.
Probably more, yes.
Let me put it this way then. You've obviously got football teams, obviously in Germany. Say that you've got 40,000 people that want to go to a Dortmund game, for instance, but you have over 100,000 people that want to get into the game. You're not going to be able to get everybody into that point, are you? And not everybody's going to want to go watch the game either in a stadium. So no matter how many people turn up to a Black Lives Matter march or sign up for it, doesn't mean that you're not sympathetic, to their movement and agree with what their points are.
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
So when you say that there's only 100,000 that are in a movement, there could be a hell of a lot more, couldn't there, under that logic?
Yes, but then say it's like 300,000 who sympathize with it. But 300,000 on 100 million, it's still, in percentage, it's nothing. They are not even there. I mean, it is obvious that there's a huge disparity between black and white people in America, and that is not all victimhood. And your education massively relies on your parents' education. When your parents have a higher education, then it is very likely that you get an even higher education. But
exactly.
If your parents' education,
which was my point earlier,
then you will not get a high education as well. So it's a systemic problem, and the only person who can solve this is the government, because it is strong enough. But they don't want to. There is no interest to do that.
Because they've tried it before. They tried to actually implement better schools. They did all the projects. Remember when they were doing the movies with Michelle Pfeiffer that would go in and try and be the best teacher that they could be, and Sister Act and things like that. They were trying to do all the schools up. They did all that. That's the reason why they did the movies. I believe they did it in the 80s.
Yes. In the 80s.
But let me finish. Let me finish,
yes.
Please. They did all that. They tried to put money into the schools and everything else like that. But because people didn't want to learn, and because people wanted to go into the game because they saw that they were getting more money, they actually did not do anything. They didn't change anything.
That is
government cannot change people's point of view. Government cannot force people's point of view.
That is an excellent example, but it is not true what you said, because especially in the 80s, the crime numbers, especially in black communities, dropped massively. And the education was rising in the black communities. But then they stopped it again.
Yeah, there's a reason why they stopped it though, isn't there?
When you have good numbers, then you stop it, and that is the reason? I don't get it.
They didn't have good numbers. That's why they didn't. That's the whole reason why they didn't stop
all the statistics.
But they didn't have good numbers. That's why they stopped it.
That's not true. That's simply not true. Look up the statistics, and you see that they had very good ratings, and they improved.
Then in that case, then the government is at fault. But it still doesn't matter, because the schools were at that point at a good level, and people should have been able to move themselves up and higher out of it and got better. My point still stands, whether or not you have a good school or a bad school. If you want to elevate yourself, you can elevate yourself. There's enough points and charge to be able to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, what can I say? I mean...
Well, as you said, we're going to, as the British or an ogre would say, Wild's vagina. We're not going to agree on this, so we'll just move on to a different point. Involve other people into it again, rather than us dominating. Does anybody else have a topic for us to talk about?
I'm pretty dry.
Well, that's your fault. You should drink more.
I just came here to discuss what you guys are discussing.
That's right. Do you have a comment, a topic for us, Wood? Anything?
I thought I'd leave the topics to you, gentlemen.
Cheers. Big help.
We have to dominate it because they don't want to talk.
No, that's fine.
We could talk about whitewashing. I'm not much good at
Whitewashing. You broke up after you said whitewashing.
whitewashing history, like basically painting how the leftist media basically paints white European history as kind of all evil, and how we oppressed the poor Africans and everyone else and all that. But
it's more or less true. So, I mean, there's nothing to talk about.
You could definitely argue a different point on that. You could quite easily say that the Middle East were a hell of in front of their time. They were one of the people that was able to bring slavery to the forefront. The Mongolians, for instance, they were heavily on slaves. Most of the African tribes were heavily on slaves as well. In fact, they were so heavy on slaves that what they would do, because they had no financial resources, is they would They would trade people and slaves and criminals for guns so they could fight their tribal wars. The only time that Africans decided that they were going to fight back, so to speak, is when I believe it was a Dutch company, as in platoon type thing, accidentally took a chieftain to be a slave, and then everybody lost their shit, so to speak, and started attacking them. But generally, it was Africans selling Africans, same as it would Middle Eastern people that were selling white people. So you can't.
All right. Well, the way where you finished, I don't really want to cut in.
Carry on, sir.
All right. Well, the way I see it is that we weren't specifically enslaving the Africans because they were black, because many people view it as a race thing. We were enslaving them not because they were black, but because they were easy to come by, because they'd enslave each other, and we just kind of jump off at the coast and just trade a gun for a man, and then it was just cheaper than just going in there and hunting him yourself or enslaving other white people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I touched on before, we had indentured servants, as in the Irish people, as in very, very poor people that would work at the manor house and things like that. Those were us slaves until we went to Africa, as you say. But again, as I said, you had people in the Middle East. I mean, you had the Ottoman Empire, were well known for slavery.
Don't forget the Barbary pirates raiding up and down the coast of the Mediterranean.
Exactly. The reason why we decided that we were going to get rid of most of the pirates as well.
The north had the Viking raiders, the south had the Barbary raiders.
Yep. Slavery is not to play a pun on it, is a funny topic, because it all depends on what you want to believe and what history you've actually read.
Well, as Sargon once said, slavery is actually, back in the day, it was kind of progressive.
It was, because it was the cheaper way of being able to get people, and you weren't actually using any white people, and everybody else was being able to be elevated, because if you had slaves, what would the actual people that were supposed to be working be doing? Oh, that's right, they would be helping other people and getting paid for it.
But the way what Sargon said was that back in like the old Mesopotamian days and the Assyrians and all that, if you captured a bunch of people in a battle, most of these people are farmers. You can't really ransom them because they can't afford it. So what you can't sell them. If you set them free, then that's basically helping the enemy. So you enslaved them. They were either enslaved or they were butchered. They didn't really have that much of an alternative.
Yeah, they'd be happy to be slaves and be killed, wouldn't they?
It was slavery or death. It was basically like the Eddie Izzard thing, cake or death back then, except a bit less
Well, if Eddie Izzard is involved, I'd choose death every time.
Well, he is the world's funniest cross-dresser.
Really, he puts a bit of makeup on his face and paints his nails. He's definitely a crossdresser.
I was just exaggerating there. Let's not argue about the ethics of cross-dressing or whatever.
No, I was just arguing about Eddie Izzard. I liked Lily Savage.
I really haven't heard that much of Lily Savage, but I'm quite a fan of Eddie.
Oh, okay. Well, we won't argue that then. All right, let's do one more topic then, and then we'll get off because we've been on now for an hour and 3 minutes. We've actually done well.
Huzzah!
Yeah, I'm quite happy with myself.
Your first full working live stream.
Yes, after many times of destroying it.
And after me moving around the house to try and get a better internet connection.
Well, that's all right. At least you've been with us all the way through, so that's one good thing.
I'm currently locked up in the toilet, hoping to God no one hears me.
Or needs the toilet, more importantly? Or needs the toilet, more importantly?
No. What do you think I am, a barbarian? I'm not going to go to the toilet on a live stream.
No, I meant somebody that needs to go to the toilet, not you that needs to go.
No, I said that I'm currently locked up in the toilet on the live stream. Best internet connection and the least
Okay.
while speaking.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not a problem. Not a problem. Right, one more topic. That's all we need. One more topic. Anyone got one?
I think we should let Fugoi, is that how you pronounce it?
It's Floggy.
Floggy. I think that we should let Floggy choose since we all had a bit of a part in it.
Oh, I started this off with private military and private security groups.
Oh, I mustn't have been there. I think we should give it to the common sense guy. You had something to say?
That you came on later. It started with private military and these things.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
I think the common sense guy should choose the last topic, considering he's the host.
Oh, cheers. I bring people on my live stream and they start telling me what to do. What form of government is this?
Anarchy.
Then everybody's going to die. All right, I've got a topic for everybody. If you had a choice, what would you choose? Socialism or communism?
That's easy. Wait a second. Socialism and communism, you said?
Yes.
That's both not exactly defined what is what, so that is nothing we can choose.
The proper definition of socialism and a proper definition of communism.
It doesn't exist. Both doesn't exist.
It's a very blurry line, isn't it?
Aren't they just both ideologies created by different theorists?
Yes, one's formed by Leninists and troglodytes, and Marxism. But yeah, basically, there's just different ideologies. But in general, everybody has a general idea of what communism is, and everybody has a general idea of what socialism is.
I'd probably choose socialism because there's less gulags involved in it.
Yes.
Yeah, well, but that has nothing to do with communism. Sorry, but I mean, when you refer to communism, then you have to discuss Karl Marx, and nearly everything he said in his Kapital is correct. While on the other hand, the Communist Manifesto was a trial to have like rules to have a definition what communism is, and that failed. So
yes,
it's kind of a difficult topic. We can discuss Marx if he's right or not. So that is not a problem. But saying like communism is this and that, it's extremely difficult because the communists couldn't agree on anything. So.
Well, I think you make a good point. Why don't we debate Karl Marx then, and what his ideologies were, and if they could work?
Well, I'll kind of be left in the dark here because I haven't actually read any Marx yet because I can't really get my hands on.
I mean, Marx
to chime in on the socialist and communist, I would say that I'd be more socialist, but with a Kantian moral theory, more of an absolutist than rather flaky, I would say.
To chime in on that, I would actually be a socialist, but I wouldn't be an absolutist. I'd want to mix not communism and socialism, but capitalism and socialism. I'd want to mix them two together.
Right.
I mean,
as far right as socialism as possible.
I mean, when you, for example, speak about Germany and German economics, we consider ourselves as a socialist, what we call it, what is the translation? Like a socialist marketing system, a social market system or something like this. And we are not exactly socialists. I mean, yeah, that's how we refer to ourselves. But if you compare socialist ideas with Germany, then you rarely find some.
Well, not unless you put people in prison for hate speech on the internet.
Count Dankula.
We put people for hate speech in prison.
I know, that's why I said it.
Yeah, but I mean, communists and socialists, I mean, these are economic ideas, and they have nothing to do with laws. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's why people are messing up and saying Soviet Russia is communist, and then they apply what Stalin did to the people to communism, but that has nothing to do with communism, because if you read communist writings, there is nothing said about laws. It is all about economics. You know what I'm saying? This is like in these days, it's more or less messed up.
I do understand what you're saying, but there are laws that are sort of written as in communists. They want as big as government as possible and as many small governments as possible to be able to lead up. And every sort of building should have a cooperative that forms their own hierarchy so that they can then talk to the hierarchy of the village. So the village can talk to the hierarchy of the town. So the town can talk to the hierarchy of blah, 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 blah.
But you don't find that in any communist writing. You find this in writings of Trotsky, and you find it in writings of Stalin, of course, and even Mao, I think. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, no, you're correct. It's just that people would actually say that there are the foundations of what you would call true communism and not the ideas of socialism.
Yes.
Because communism itself is not actually a form of markets. Communism is actually a form of business models, as in the fact that they don't actually have a business model. It's all owned and regulated by the state. That's their business model.
I mean, Marx said, and that is maybe one of the most famous quotes, he said that the production machines should be in the hands of the workers. That's what he said, but he was not talking about the state. And then Stalin came along and said, like, okay, the people are the state, so the production machines should be in the hand of the states. You know what I'm saying? But Marx never said this. He never.
No, I understand. I understand. I also know that Marx actually never stood in a actual working factory whatsoever,
yes,
and the fact that at the end of his book, he said that if we wanted to hang all of the capitalists, the last capitalist would end up selling them the rope.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And as well that I believe his best buddy was the one who was funding all of Marx's ideas and the printing of Marx's books. Yeah, because he didn't actually have any money.
Yes. He was, in his private life, he was a total disaster.
Yes,
he was completely messed up. Yeah.
Indeed. I mean, some of his ideas are quite intellectual, and even some of them I would agree in a basis of, I believe in the ideas of a kind of a welfare state, as in the state should be able to look at the economic system should be able to look after and have a safety net for its workers and so on and so forth. I believe that. I also believe in the healthcare situation that Marx progressed as well.
But Marx didn't say too much about welfare. I mean,
I thought he said that
it was more about the distribution of the wealth. That was
Yeah.
he was talking about, but he more or less mostly spoke about the working people, the working class.
Which is kind of funny because he never even spoke to any working class.
Exactly, yeah. And he had the chance because his friend Friedrich Engels, he had a cloth company in England,
Yes.
and he invited him several times to visit it, and Marx always denied.
Yep. He never actually visited any sort of factory or anything else like that, but understood the inner workings of the factories in general.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like me and you are starting to dominate this conversation again.
Well, I have a little strange tangents that are barely related to the conversation.
Please indulge us.
Sure, if it's true.
Go ahead.
This is more of just a fun fact. But
Yep.
I've read something. I'm not sure if it's true though. But in a sad irony, apparently you have to pay to see Marx's grave to keep it running, and it's not free. I don't know much about it, but you need to pay to see it apparently.
No. It's on a normal London graveyard. You can go there and watch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That must have just been it was just a fake.
It was capitalist propaganda, my friend.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that was true, because one of my mates told me that the other day, and I couldn't really find out if it was true or not on the internet.
As I say in all of my videos, do your own goddamn research. Don't just listen and believe. Do your own goddamn research.
Yeah, I did, but all I found was capitalist propaganda.
Yeah, I mean that is one of at least that is what the economic professors say. Most of them say the problems of economic classes is nobody is talking about the ideas of Karl Marx. So that is kind of odd, because at least you should know an alternative to capitalism.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like when people go, "Oh, you should silence the other side," and then you have our side, so to speak. I use that in our inverted air commas. Going, "Oh, you should let them speak." It's the same thing for communists and socialists. Because if you go on to the point of actually going as what you said, if you went on the economics, yeah, there's an argument that it might work. But unfortunately, with the economics, it normally goes into the ideology of a government, and then that's where it fails.
Yeah.
Every single time. Because it's not designed to go into government, because as you said, there's no foundation for it to go into government, apart from localized areas.
The problem is, I had a chat with Nachi Free.
Yeah.
And I was explaining the ideas of Marx, the surplus, and how the workers should be in control of the company and so on. And I think that is exactly the most difficult problem with Marx theories, because you always need a founder to start a business.
Yeah.
And when you start a business, then he has all the risk, he puts all the money in it, and so on. And then at a certain point, how can you share the value of the company with the workers? Yeah, that is kind of the difficult and tricky part.
Yeah.
And,
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's like with capitalists when and capitalist and narco. You know what I mean? Anarchy capitalists, where they come out and go, "Oh, we want to get completely rid of the government." It's like, no,
Yeah,
you kind of need the regulation.
I think anarchist is the most stupid idea ever. I mean, that is not
Of
working at all.
course.
I feel like
Of
the
course,
anarchists have
exactly.
read too much Jean-Jacques Rousseau in The Social Contract.
Well, the thing is, if you look at it from the social contract point of view, then that still means that you technically are part of the state because you have a social contract with the state, meaning you need a government for a social contract to work.
Yeah, I
Yes.
guess they didn't think about that one.
Yeah.
No, and everybody in society wants protection. Everybody in society wants infrastructure. Everybody in society wants education, and so on. And if you have an
Exactly.
anarchy, who takes care of it? Nobody. So
Nobody at all. Nobody
it's
at all.
like going back to the Wild West, or I don't know, even earlier.
Well, no, I was
Everybody
going to say
shoots
even the Wild West had churches and schools and
Yes.
things like that.
True.
So even they had them, the heathens, colonial heathens. Right, I think we're coming to an end.
Yeah. And we are having a chat at the Ogre about the Brexit.
Apparently, at some point,
Wednesday,
Ogre's very, very busy at the moment. Obviously, as I'm sure you lot are all aware, he's missed the last 2 streams because he's a farmer and he's very, very busy at the moment. And he's got some personal problems as well.
Harvest season.
Sorry? Yeah, it's
Harvest
harvest
season.
season. Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so he's very, very busy at the moment. So I'm not 100% sure what, when, and where's going on. I do know that me and the Brit will be on Friday. I do know that.
Okay. On the British channel, or on what channel?
We will be on the British channel, yes.
Hmm.
We will. We will definitely be on the British channel. Sorry? Sorry? Somebody said something when I was talking and I didn't hear.
Oh, I just said I look forward to it.
It'll be fine. I'll be alright. I quite like doing this, to be fair. I quite like doing this quite a lot. Just having chats with people in general, because everybody has a different political point of view. And we've been able to kill, what, an hour and 5 minutes, something along that at this moment in time? We've been able to kill an hour and 5 minutes, and we've covered quite a lot of topics. And I feel a lot of us have been able to express our point of views. I mean, Flaggy
Yeah.
Flaggy was able to express his points of views
There you
very,
go.
very early on.
It sounds wrong when we pronounce it because we're just too British to pronounce it.
Yes, indubitably.
Just you.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, go ahead.
I said just skip the U. Foggy.
But then
No, but it's got to have the
Yes.
Flaggy.
it has to have that the appeal or the finesse. It doesn't have the same. What's the word?
Yeah. I have always the
Like what?
excuse of my nasty
Yeah, it
accent.
doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi.
We
The same
use
word,
French
but I was
words to
looking
describe that we can't speak Canadian words.
Mm.
The irony.
Well, it's a boot.
Most of our modern English actually does come from French.
Well, technically, it comes from Latin, and obviously, Latin is a base
Old
base
modern
language.
French,
Yes.
not modern French. Even modern French is kind of just a mixture of a bunch of Latinic languages that is kind of merged together.
Yeah, go speak some Yiddish. You'll be fine.
Oi,
Do
oi,
you speak Yiddish?
I can't speak Yiddish. No,
I speak
Because
Indonesian.
that is almost the same like German.
kinda. Yeah.
I was very funny. I was I met a guy in New York, and he could speak Yiddish, and he spoke Yiddish, and I was like totally surprised, and I said, "Oh, that's almost German. I can totally understand you." And obviously, he was not so happy with it, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think he would be, considering that Germany took over most of Holland.
It was funny when I was working in London. I had a colleague of mine. He was from South Africa, and when he was speaking Afrikaans and I'm speaking German, we could understand each other.
Apparently, apparently Old English is closer to German than you think.
Okay.
Indirect translation it is,
Yeah.
yes. But generally
I
trying
mean,
to speak
what I mean is that
Old English, no.
really Old English, pre-Norman conquest, would have sounded a lot more like German.
Oh, you mean
Yeah.
like pick?
No, not picked. Like pre-1066, the Alfred the Great, what he would have sounded.
You
a
mean
lot more like
Saxon?
German.
You mean
Yeah.
Saxon? Before the Vikings
Anglo-Saxon
took over, or just after the Vikings took over?
Anglo-Saxon English. The Vikings and the Saxons actually would have been able to a degree, understand each other.
Yeah, the same as Germany would have done. I'm sure stories would be able to explain this a lot better than what I would.
Yes, my grandparents, they had a very special German accent, and that was very strongly related to English. Yeah, in many ways. Yeah.
From what I've read, the closest language to English in the modern world is Frisian.
Frisian?
Frisian. It's a certain language in modern day Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
Along the north coast of the Netherlands. It's apparently quite close to English from what I read.
Yes. Yeah, I tried to read Shakespeare, early version of Shakespeare once, but I had to skip it. It was not possible for me to understand it at all. That was like really. Ugh.
To be fair, I'm English and I can't really understand Old English. I have to really slow down and read it to be able to do anything to do with that.
The Northerners apparently have a better job of understanding it than we do.
Well, that's because they're always going thou and thou anyway.
Nah,
They can't. Exactly, they're always abbreviating the words.
because they're more Saxon than we filthy Normans.
Probably.
When I hear like Scotch people talking, I have always the feeling that I'm listening to a German because their language is so hard, just like ours.
My cousins are Scottish, so I can understand them to a degree.
Especially the R, the hard pronunciation of the R.
I like to prance around the Highlands in a skirt.
Yeah, exactly. That was what I'm talking about.
I'm going to leave you two to it.
I have to go to the academy tomorrow, and it's 5 a.m.
Yeah, when I was living in England, I was living in the south in Kent, and it was really hard for me to understand these guys. But all my working colleagues from the north, like Manchester, that was totally easy to understand them. So yeah.
What about Birmingham?
Well, what we can all agree on what we English can usually agree on is the north is the place of the worst accents.
No, the north is easy to understand. The south is really bad.
Really?
For me, it is really. I was always struggling.
I suppose.
Cornwall, probably.
Well, no, because I've got a theory on this. The northern people, the more northern you go, the slower they speak, and the more docile it is, as in the more it rhymes. The more southern you go in England, the quicker you speak, the shorter, the more abbreviation you use.
The fast city life has something to do with that.
The rat race, my friend, the rat race.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's true, Common. Yeah.
Well, I'll be.
Yay, we agree. We agreed.
Gentlemen, I have to go now, so I'll be seeing you when I see you.
No worries, Wood. Great talking to you.
Goodbye. Until next time.
Until next time, my friend. Thank you. Well, it looks like we've lost our only audience member. Is there anything else that you two want to talk about for the next 15 or 20 minutes?
Well, we can stick with economics if you like.
I was thinking more of a lighter note. It doesn't have to even be anything about politics.
Okay.
Just something in general. It doesn't really matter.
Talk?
Yeah, anything. Doesn't really matter.
Bayern Munich was killed by Saint-Germain today. Have you seen the game? They completely completely destroyed Bayern Munich 3-0.
Bloody hell. Bloody hell. Let me guess, Neymar scored.
Pardon me?
Let me guess, Neymar scored.
Yeah. The last one and the second, he I don't know how to say it. He provided the I don't know how to express it in English. I rarely talk about football in English.
That's fair enough. What would our Canadian friend like to talk about, or are you too busy drinking?
What do you guys drink?
When I used to drink, it was a mixture. I always wanted to get drunk. So if I ever stayed on one particular drink, I wouldn't get drunk quick. Eventually you'd get drunk and fall over, obviously, but generally I wouldn't get drunk quick. So I'd normally mix it. I'd normally start off with a beer, and then I'd move on to my spirits. So I'd have like Jack and Coke and stuff like that. And then I'd move on to Southern Comfort, lemonade, and then that was me for the night. That was my favourite drink. For me, anyway. What about you, Stories? What did you drink or not drink?
Oh, I'm not into alcohol at all. The only year, or it was really a whole year, when I was really heavily drinking when I was in Canada. Because it's always cloudy, it's always raining. So what can you do but drink? But here
It's always a good opportunity to drink in Canada.
Pardon me?
It's always a good time to drink when you're in Canada.
Yeah. Oh, I totally enjoyed it. It was not bad, but usually I'm not drinking. So I stick with coffee at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up in a winemaking family, so I usually start off with a beer. And then it's usually about half a bottle of wine after that, and then I'll finish
See,
off
now
with
you're
it.
talking about wine. You have to specify.
But
God. My favorite right now, it has to be this Hungarian wine called Tokaj.
Yeah.
And it's a dessert wine. And
Is
it's
that
made
white?
from,
Is that a white wine then?
technically it's a white. It's made with quince.
Right.
And it has a lot of like grape notes through it.
Yeah.
but I hear in your accent that you have like Irish roots, so you don't get drunk, right?
I actually have native and Germanic roots.
Brothers. I'm the only true Englishman here. Well, wait, isn't that a fallacy? The only true Scotsman fallacy. The only problem is I'm not a Scotsman. Oh well, I think this stream is coming to a dying moment. I think we should probably say bye and carry on.
Thank you for inviting me.
No worries. I think I'll
Yeah,
probably
thank you
do
for
this a
having
little
us
bit
in.
more often now I know how to do it. Finally. Yeah, finally I'll do that. What I'll do is I'd like to do this on a Tuesday and a Thursday. Probably around about sort of 8 o'clock my sort of time.
Yeah.
So if any of you two are free, I'm more than happy to talk about any subject that you want to talk about. But the only thing is, if you want to come on the channel, you've got to bring your own topics, because I do a video every day. I'm sure the reason why is because I do a video every day.
Mm-hmm.
I get so
bombarded. Next time I'll come more prepared.
Can I have one critique on your videos? Well, don't be afraid. It's a technical thing. Please make sure that the audio levels are the same when you're playing like other videos, because the not the last one but the one before, it was such a big difference between you talking and the video you were playing. I had to change the volume like every time it switches. So try to make sure it is like roughly in the same area.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you for letting me know, because I wouldn't have known that otherwise. Because I use OBS to no, I wouldn't. I use OBS to record the news sources that I use, and I only use the desktop volume, so it doesn't matter if I talk around it. Then it doesn't pick up my my voice or anything. So I forget that sometimes it's down too low, or if I don't turn up the news source to a high level, I sometimes forget.
Oh, so you
So
are not
no, I
editing
appreciate
it.
that.
Okay.
No, I edit it. It's just that I've got headphones on all the time, so I don't hear myself speak, do I, when I'm speaking?
Ah, okay, I see. Yeah.
So I can't tell what level it is until after I just re-edit what I said, and then I'm only listening to what I've said, if you know what I mean. So I don't see what the difference is in the levels. But no, I appreciate you telling me. I appreciate that. So yeah, next time bring some shit. Bring some shit with you.
We will, sir. We will.
All right then. On that note, I'm going to bid you all a farewell and adieu.
Farewell.
So take care. See you all again soon. Bye bye now.